Well, welcome everybody to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. There's going to be a Bible study later, but for now, I'm just going to be going over what I did. Let me share the screen with you. I typed in to YouTube here, Rediscovered Lost, left it open, and then went and checked the Creative Commons to see who are the people that put out filters, that I can show these and I won't have to get a copyright strike. So we're going to be looking at, maybe an hour and a half of these videos, and then look forward to a Bible study or discussion on it later. We're going to be watching a few, I think, about Cleopatra's Needle. So that's another one. This is a 20-minute version from the same, good people that you don't have to do it. Put our spin on it, the biblical spin, the hidden history, added 1,000 years. Mud flood was Armageddon. First video of the night.
In Egyptian objects in the 19th century, referred to as Egyptomania, major cities soon wanted obelisks for their own, acquired as though they were trophies of world conquest. France and Britain were gifted a few as a reward for their actions against Napoleon, but at least in the case of an ill-fated vessel headed to London, not without great cost on a monetary level and the death of 6 men in the process. The obelisk is an enigma to us. Not only have we forgotten the true purpose of these ancient marvels, but in the today and now, we have also repurposed the meaning of the enigmatic masterpieces, just as the dynastic Egyptians did. You must consider that the raising of these things is completely extraordinary. The time and effort to cut them out of the bedrock, transport them over vast distances, and raise them into place for the purpose of simply documenting certain episodes of a king or queen's life doesn't really add up. It does symbolize power and wealth, but not for documentary purposes. These things are clearly part of something much more elaborate. A forgotten apparatus from a forgotten technology, from a forgotten period in history, and created by the lost civilization for reasons we can only speculate about. Remember, in Egypt, most of these things were buried and ancient during the rule of the pharaohs. And it is even documented that Cleopatra tried to salvage these very ancient things during her reign. There is little doubt that these things are more ancient than we are aware of. However, we are dating them based on the hieroglyphic inscriptions that are carved upon them. This is a crude and lazy alternative to not understand the past. Instead, we have credited these things based on the notion that our re-emergence as a civilization on Earth is all we have ever known. But it's not. We are older than the assumed timeline, and when we use terms like reawakening, well, this is literal. We are literally reawakening in modern times and trying to piece together the forgotten past that has haunted our conscience thinking since the cataclysmic event that traumatized us as a whole. It is crazy, though, that us humans are touring this planet to visit the things that have existed here alongside us. We look in awe at structures that ancient Earth inhabitants created with apparent ease, and we struggle with certain aspects in terms of the purpose of these things. We are clawing at a closed door, trying to fit everything that has ever existed into a small scale of time without even considering that there is more, much more, and in recent times, we are only beginning. Every culture on this planet tells us of the before time, the time of the gods in which we were warned to change our ways or face the consequences. The consequences that we are still suffering from today, and we can't remember. We have trauma as a collective species, but at least we are reawakening to this, yet our remembrance is still choked. The plundering of history through the past few thousand years, and even beyond, that would suggest a global tradition of greed. The disregard of respect and the attention it draws is short-lived. We are making it up as we go along for the purposes of power and wealth. If you consider the obelisk, you must consider that these things were once strategically placed, not for ceremonial purposes, but for reasons that stretch the imagination to a forgotten reality that we refer to as mythology. Wait till you hear this. Sitting in Central Park, we find the oldest structure in New York, one of Cleopatra's Needles. Of course, Cleopatra didn't create these marbles. It was already very ancient and decayed through millennia in her day. Instead, they take the queen's name simply because she had one moved from Heliopolis to Alexandria just before the time of Christ. That one is now in London, and coupled with one in Paris and New York, they are referred to as the Cleopatra Needles. The story of Central Park Needle and its transportation from Egypt to America is astonishing. A highly symbolic message of the glory of the past and a meaning that the ancient power and wealth now resides within the West. The Romans in their day did take these things both to Istanbul and Rome, which were the two ancient capitals of the Roman Empire. Istanbul having been previously referred to as Constantinople, where Emperor Theodosius had it re-erected in the 4th century. And that continued for millennia as the Roman Empire found obelisks in Egypt, transported them to Rome, where they had them repaired and erected as a clear symbol of power, a demonstration of wealth, but also an understanding that these things are signifying something more. Would it surprise you to learn that as recently as the 1920s and 30s, dictators like Mussolini were leaving messages and gold offerings under the obelisk, portraying himself as a new Roman emperor? This is an example of how easily history can be manipulated under certain conditions. The taking of these things, even in modern times, requires a significant effort. You've got to wonder what the point of it all is, and maybe what is being buried underneath these things is a clue. Maybe there is a clue in the mystery black box that was placed under the Central Park Needle, the contents of which are completely unknown to anyone in the world, and there is no documentation at all as to what may be in it, but there may be clues. William Henry Vanderbilt, a very wealthy businessman, funded the transportation of this artifact with a hefty donation. And when the obelisk was raised, a time capsule was built and buried underneath. And William Henry Holbert put a mystery black box into the capsule and never told anyone what it was for or what was in it. However, he later admitted that he anonymously published books before later crediting himself with the anonymous publishing, claiming to offer verbatim accounts of secret conversations by elite members of society, included recorded accounts from Stephen A. Douglas, William A. Seward, and Abraham Lincoln himself. You must consider that these black boxes are symbolic with stone masonry. Edward Leedskalnin, who is responsible for the Coral Castle construction, also had one of these mystery boxes in his possession and is even credited with having given him the ability to effortlessly move very heavy stone with ease using just pulley and rope systems. One group who were especially fascinated in the Central Park Needle are the Freemasons. They have been a mysterious and controversial fraternity who have been involved in several critical moments in American history, including the inauguration of fellow Mason George Washington. A Mason engineer and adventurer named Henry Honeychurch Gorringe discovered an incredible secret on the remaining Alexandria obelisk, a secret that might link the secretive organization to the beginning of human civilization as we know it. We can speculate that New York City, a city that mesmerizes the imagination for its use of the heaviest stone material available, that this obelisk and indeed the little inconspicuous black box that is buried underneath may be generating mystical powers beyond our comprehension and indeed beyond our understanding. In this sense, the needle in Central Park may be transmitting energy of some sort to enable the use of stone on this scale, maybe. First conceived as an idea to lure more trade opportunities between the U.S. and Egypt, this one single gesture may be one of the most significant undertakings in American history, and we're going to tell you why. On February 22nd, 1881, a truly monumental occasion took place in the grand halls of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The formal presentation of the so-called Cleopatra's Needle to the city of New York by the Egyptian government was taking place. The public interest this generated at the time was like the equivalent of the Queen of Egypt arriving in the city herself. There was an overwhelming excitement in the air as the wealthy New Yorkers watched in awe at this industrious symbol that was now part of their own city. But of course, the story doesn't start here, nor will it end here. If we are not understanding these things, but knowing of their power, then at least we can grasp a basic understanding that this is commonly in our thoughts. A feeling of intuition that overcomes our emotion when in the presence of such majestic things. Described as the heaviest piece of stone brought to Manhattan since the glaciers and weighing in at over 220 tons and standing proud at 70 feet tall, the story of the arrival of this thing is just incredible. This obelisk was inscribed with hieroglyphics 3,500 years ago when it was repurposed by the dynastic Egyptians. Though we feel it is much older and a remnant of a forgotten and lost civilization, possibly dating back beyond the Younger Dryads, but unclear when it was actually quarried. Though to have stood in Heliopolis until it was toppled by Persian invaders, it lay in the sand, eroding for millennia, before the Romans salvaged it and attempted a restore under Julius Caesar. Thutmose III amassed the greatest empire in dynastic Egyptian history during his 54-year reign. The pharaoh came to power in 1479 BC and claimed to have conquered more than 300 cities from Syria to Sudan, leading his army from a chariot sheathed in gold. To celebrate his 30th year of rule, the pharaoh asked for a pair of pillars to flank the Sun Temple in Heliopolis. While Thutmose inscribed them with his name, two other kings later seized them and added their own self-serving hieroglyphs to the four sides. Pharaoh Ramses II, who reigned from 1279 to 1212 BC, inscribed his praises and left little room for Osorkon I, who crammed his moniker on a lower edge. Obvious examples of these very ancient things were used to document the king's existence, and a clear suggestion that they had no idea what these things were before they began inscribing. Despite claims that they were quarried during this time at Aswan, there is no indication as to what tools were used to cut it or how they proposed to move these things, let alone raise them into position. It's all very patchy, suggesting the history we are told is in that of a short-sighted one on our part. Despite the hieroglyphic inscriptions describing the pharaohs as having permission from the previous civilization to rule in these dynastic times, we refer this as the gods of Egypt, when in fact it is probably the lost civilization. Thought to have been toppled for the high gold content at the Pyramidion and thought to have been toppled by the Persian invaders, there is also evidence of scorching on the monument. This could either be from efforts to melt the gold from it, or it could be remnants of whatever energies were once radiating through the device when it was a working piece of apparatus. Remembering that gold is highly conductive and, along with the granite materials of the stone, it made for a perfect receiver and transmitter, just like a modern pylon. By the time Augustus went to erect the obelisk in Alexandria in 13 BC, he already faced a challenge. The base of the nearly 1,500-year-old monument had worn or chipped away, making it impossible to erect the 240-ton, 70-foot behemoth. His solution? Giant bronze crabs, each weighing in at 922 pounds. The crabs were chosen for their role in Roman mythology, associated with Apollo and the sun, thereby in keeping with the Egyptian tradition. When the Americans arrived on the scene to salvage the obelisk nearly 2 centuries later in 1880, 2 of the crabs had gone missing. By a lucky turn of chance, they were discovered by divers during the process of clearing the harbor of debris in order to make way for the ship carrying the obelisk. The claws we see today are replicas with the originals on display at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. America missed its first chance at an obelisk in 1869 at the opening of the Suez Canal. Bankrupt and beholden to European creditors, Egypt offered U.S. officials the ancient pillar not out of generosity and friendship, but out of desperation, and in exchange wanted protection from America, an alliance that still holds to this day. And a flashpoint in 1956 saw America warn Britain and France against any action in what became known as the Suez Crisis. In 1879, newspaper headlines declared obelisk victory, and railroad mogul William Vanderbilt covered the obelisk's massive transport costs. There were some delays. Egyptian nationalists objected to sending the nation's patrimony overseas, and a
You know what I see sometimes when I look at these? You can start checking out the printing on the obelisk, especially the Cleopatra's Needle. It's going to be, it seems real deep in some pictures. And when you see it today, it's faded. It's faded more than that 150 years, 100 years. It looks like it's faded the whole 1,000 years, like all of that was done. Just keep that in mind as you're checking it out.
creditor of the Egyptian government threatened to place a lien on the obelisk, but Egypt signed ownership over to the United States in 1879. The New York Times remarked sorely that there is no longer any hope that we shall escape the Alexandria obelisk. On June 12, 1880, it was arriving in Staten Island, and the daunting task of moving this thing to Central Park could begin. The monument arrived at the foot of West 96th Street on September 16th and took just another 2 hours to cross the railroad tracks along the Hudson River. On a cradle similar to a flat car, it was winched forward on a huge movable track, a few lengths at a time by a steam engine using chain or cable anchored by a block to draw the car forward. It took 32 horses hitched in 16 pairs to drag the 50-ton pedestal alone through the streets of Manhattan. Hundreds of people came to the west side to watch, although they were disappointed when they found the obelisk encased in wood. One man expressed disgust to a reporter for the Evening Telegram. What's the use of coming to see a box? By October 27th, the obelisk had reached 96th and Broadway, where a pair of women selling apples jockeyed for position. An Egyptian guard was necessary to keep boys from writing on the obelisk with chalk, and the apple sellers spread the word that the guard had been discovered under the obelisk in Alexandria and wanted to be reburied with it in its new location. The obelisk made another turn at 86th and Broadway and arrived at the 86th Street transverse on November 25th, reaching 5th Avenue on December 16th. By the 22nd that month, it turned into the park just below the new Metropolitan Museum of Art and was hauled up a 42-foot-high, 870-foot-long trellis of massive timbers to its current resting place. The New York Herald reported that the grounds of the museum were crowded with sightseers, the surroundings black with their stovepipe hats. On January 5th, 1881, it reached the knoll chosen as its site, a journey just shy of 10,000 feet that took 112 days, about 90 feet per day. Commander Gorridge brought with him from Egypt a massive turning apparatus, something like a two-armed catapult. And on January 22nd, the obelisk was turned 90 degrees in 5 minutes. And a great cheer rose from the thousands of stunned onlooking New Yorkers who must have felt at the time that history was passing them by, literally. When the obelisk cornerstone was laid at Central Park's Greywacke Knoll, close to East 81st Street, at least 9,000 Freemasons marched up Fifth Avenue to commemorate it with a ceremony. New York merchants, including a needle company, doled out trading cards in honor of the artifact, showing the Queen of the now threading not a needle, but an obelisk. A candy stand trailed the monument on the voyage to its new home, while another merchant sold Cleopatra dates in an obelisk-shaped box. Before it was erected, a time capsule was buried under its base with documents including the 1870 census, a copy of the Declaration of Independence, Webster's Dictionary, and a small box from William Henry Holbrook. Its complete contents are unknown. The craze for things Egyptian has long passed. We walked by the obelisk several times this week and see tourists come up, pause, and depart. Even at 7 stories high, it is...
That's a good picture of why would it be so exposed on one side only. There's just too much mystery going on here.
Passive and static. If only we could have seen its latest journey to the Central Park location. The excitement surrounding this thing is only apparent by its unseen forces that we feel. We still look on with wonder, but our understanding is completely flawed. There are 3 Cleopatra needles around the world, so we walk around each one 3 times for luck, just as Nikola Tesla walked around each building 3 times. A mark of respect for a world monument that has survived the ages, and of course, We must respect what we don't yet understand. By 1885, the obelisk was showing signs it was struggling in the harsh winters of New York City. Not only that, but incredibly, it had become shooting practice with the discovery of flattened bullets at the site. This, along with colonies of plants forming on the monument in the cracks and expanding the damage. This forced the city to remove 800 pounds worth of granite chips and coated it with paraffin to prevent plant growth.
That sounds like they had to cover up the hieroglyphs or something. That sounds so fake.
Removal of the granite chips was the greatest damage ever applied to the obelisk, and this was done deliberately in an effort to preserve it. However, when searching for the granite at the Natural History Museum in 1983, it appears that the city had forgotten where they had placed them. Either that or they were discarded. The paraffin applied to preserve the stone also reacted with the granite color, which used to be pink. Sad, but true. As of 2019, the structure was no longer in active decay. There is a growing consensus to move the obelisk south for its health, or even build a glass dome over it, or even move it inside the museum. But for everything it has seen, it is still at the chosen location in Central Park, sitting among the green shrubbery and trees, and a symbol of something forgotten. From being buried in the sand for millennia to being part of the New World superpower, if only these things could tell us what they have seen. Sadly, this marvel is not visited very often. In fact, no one is actively going out of their way to visit the site, and we would encourage anyone either living in New York or visiting to go have a look. It is a piece of lost history in every sense and deserves more recognition.
I just can't believe that they rubbed that off and filled it in. And nobody goes out of their way to try to find it. Amazing. Just amazing. Well, let's see what else we have here. There's the one we do. Lost technologies, 7 lost treasures no one could seem to find. Ancient megacities. Oh, I love the rediscovering.
In the modern world, there are people coming up with inventions and adaptations to previous designs at an almost unprecedented scale. It is almost impossible for us to imagine a world without internet or a motorized vehicle, for example. But what if we were to tell you that our modern technology is still not enough to understand the ancient artifacts left behind on this earth by civilizations thousands of years ago? These are our 6 insane major discoveries rediscovered that we struggle to comprehend in modern times. Just wait till you hear this. At number 6, the Rosetta Stone. In 1799, the French army was marching through Egypt. This was a military invasion, but Napoleon had his eye on more than just land. With the army were 167 scientists and artists who were sent to explore and examine relics of an ancient culture. Their greatest discovery came by chance. A troop had made its way to the town of Rosetta, where they prepared to build a fort. One soldier dug up an old stone slab and was using it to build a wall when his lieutenant noticed some strange writing in 3 languages on the stone. The lieutenant had the stone sent to the Institut d'Egypte, Napoleon's scientific base. They identified the languages as Greek, Egyptian hieroglyphic, and Demotic. Using their...
You know what? I'm going to have to just be honest with you. If you want to believe that baloney, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't believe their history. I do know that they're stuck with artifacts and they're stuck with tunnels and things like that. And they're doing their best to tie up the loose ends because they feel they only have to make it a little while longer. But we're seeing right through it. But anyway, I don't even think Napoleon exists. He's like one of these guys like Tesla or, could Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, could just be made up out of whole cloth to explain history. Anyway, back to the video.
Their knowledge of Greek, teams worked for years translating the Rosetta Stone and uncovered the key to translating Egyptian hieroglyphics. It was deciphered in 1822 by Jean-Francisco Champollion. Without the Rosetta Stone's discovery, Egyptian hieroglyphics would have been completely untranslatable. In at number 5 on our list, the 1700-year-old seal from a Japanese emperor. In 1784, a rice farmer in Japan was trying to repair an irrigation ditch. As he worked, he noticed something shiny lodged between two rocks. When he dug it out and washed it off, he was holding a seal made of pure gold. The farmer brought it to a local scholar who realized that the seal was a legendary relic gifted by Emperor Guangwu of Han to a Japanese emissary during the first state meeting between China and Japan in AD 57. The seal was also the first time that the Japanese had seen Chinese characters, which were later adopted into the kanji script that Japan still uses today. In at number 4, King Tut's tomb. Archaeologist Howard Carter would not have found King Tut's tomb if not for the pure dumb luck of his water boy.
It's always dumb luck. And does that rope really look like it's over thousands of years old? Come on. Fake it better, people.
And already spent years searching unsuccessfully for a tomb rumored to be in the area. But it was going so poorly that his funding was to be cut off in a few more months. With him, though, was a boy whose only job was to fetch water. Bored, the water boy started playing with a stick in the sand when he stumbled upon a stone step. He told Carter, who rushed over and started digging. It took 22 days for Carter and his men to trace their way down the steps and through the sealed door at the bottom. But when they did, they discovered a massive tomb full of more gold and treasure than any found in all of Egypt. All thanks to a bored water boy. Crazy, right? In at number 3, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Back in 1947, a group of Bedouin herders went looking for a lost goat. Their search took them through a cave.
Oh, here we go. How to maybe combine some fake history with real history, because, don't get me started on the Qumran Dead Sea Scrolls
that hadn't been explored in a long time. There, they unexpectedly found jars filled with ancient manuscripts. The herders had no idea that they had stumbled upon the Dead Sea Scrolls, manuscripts of the Old Testament that would prove to be one of the biggest discoveries.
You know what? Look at the font. No, there's no mistakes or misspellings in it.
History. The herders grabbed the jars, brought them into town, and sold them to a trader for $60. As the manuscripts were passed around, some of them were sold in the U.S. for $250,000. Realizing what they had found, the herders changed professions. They started working with archaeologists and helped them find 981 ancient texts that became major study tools for scholars. This time, the herders earned a hefty $300,000 each for their work. The significance and importance of the Dead Sea Scrolls are the single most historically important documents ever discovered in the history of humanity. At number 2, Derinkuyu Underground City. The rocky landscape of Turkey's Cappadocia region is home to dozens of underground cities that were once hand-carved from volcanic ash by their ancient inhabitants. One of the most elaborate of these subterranean metropolises is Derinkuyu, which contains 18 stories and enough space to house some 20,000 people. Dating back 10,000 years BC, it is just stunning and almost impossible to comprehend. Amazingly, the site was only discovered as recently as 1963, when a local man knocked down a wall while renovating his home and uncovered a passageway leading to a vast network of stone tunnels and chambers. Experts are still unsure who built Derinkuyu or when, but excavations have found that it once housed its own meeting halls, shops, freshwater wells, stables, and even heavy stone doors to protect its residents from danger. Why this site was built is a complete mystery, but one thing plain to see, and that is the industrious scale in which it exists.
Yeah, I don't think it's hard to understand. God told them, go to the hills and pray, because he's going to come back in judgment. It all seems so simple.
It is one of the true marvels from the ancient world. And at number 1 on our list, Lascaux Cave. In September 1940, 4 French teenagers were roaming the forest near Montignac when their dog began sniffing around a mysterious hole in the ground. After shimmying down a stone shaft, the boys encountered a vast underground cavern whose walls were adorned with some 2,000 ancient paintings and engravings. The astonished teens initially agreed to explore the grotto in secret, but they later sent word of the find to their school teacher, who persuaded a cave expert to verify its authenticity. Before long, word of the Lascaux Caves' exquisite collection of animal drawings and abstract symbols had spread across Europe and the world, and it became known as the Sistine Chapel of prehistoric art. Historians later placed the age of its paintings at around 25,000 years old, and many believe the cave was once the site of religious and hunting rites among Upper Paleolithic peoples. The natural preservation of this site has proven to have been complete luck. Unfortunately, it has faded by lighting, and a black fungus is growing rapidly. The cave has been completely sealed as of 2008. With millions being spent on research, it should be saved by experts. We thought this video would not be complete without one notable surprise selection for all of our subscribers who actually take the time to watch our videos right through. This bonus selection is one of the most obvious selections when you hear this: the Xi'an Terracotta Army. In 1974, a group of Chinese farmers chanced upon the discovery of a lifetime.
Everything's done by chance or the will of the Lord for people like you who are looking for the truth. Amen.
The tomb of the first emperor of the Qin dynasty. The 7-man team was digging a well near the city of Xi'an when one of their shovels struck the head of a buried statue. The men initially thought they had discovered a bronze bust or an ancient Buddha sculpture. But when archaeologists conducted further excavation, they found it was one of some 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers, horses, and chariots constructed to guard the 3rd century BC emperor Qin Shi Huang in the afterlife. The tomb and its highly detailed soldiers, each has its own unique face, are now regarded as the most important archaeological treasure in all of China. Doesn't that just blow your mind, or what? So that's it for now, guys. Those were our major discoveries that were accidentally rediscovered. If you like this video, then please let us know below, and remember to give it the thumbs up.
I like that video. I thought it was good. Hey, unexplained relics. Ancient Hall of Records.
The Hall of Records is one of these subjects that we speculate that if it actually still existed, then it not only will change the history of the origin of the ancient Egyptians, but it will also give us the knowledge for the key to understanding the real history of the human race. Is this place of knowledge in Egypt? Many believe it is buried under the Great Sphinx, while there are others who are very skeptical about the validity of it even being in Egypt. If we ever find the Great Hall, then of course it will be a game changer to the point that it can be dangerous to release this type of plane of stone. If this should be the case, it would not only be a historic discovery, but also a huge challenge, because the whole area is seriously affected by corrosive, salty groundwater aggressively destroying the stone on a great scale.
I just don't think, there's too much speculation. And let's face it, not a lot of cool pictures.
Though it is unclear how and when the practice of controlling the masses began, there is no doubt that even in the today and now, we are a controlled society by a wealthy elite. You and I are simply the cogs and pulleys that keep everything ticking over. There are translations from ancient texts that suggest that we are a civilization created for the purposes of carrying out work on the earth for the benefit of a completely different race of beings who came here to the earth for gold and other resources. The Anunnaki are no longer present here on the earth in any visible presence, but their methods of social control remains, and we human beings are hardwired to follow these processes. This is why we work, rest, and play. The Anunnaki gave us structure in return for these fundamental values. They are worshipped as gods. But the case of a few
Bobby, are you hearing this? Are you hearing it, man? These guys are out of their mind. They're out of their mind. The Anunnaki and everything else. You know they've got to go to something. The Bible explains everything. Well, here's what they're leaning on. You know they're never going to give it up until God opens their eyes. And if God doesn't open their eyes, hallelujah, praise God, he's opened ours. Amen.
benefiting from the many has spread into human culture. When these gods left after the Great Flood, faith in their return remained, and this left the door open for that void to be filled from Mesopotamia into Egypt and Greece, and eventually leading to the rise of the Roman Empire and the Catholic Church. People needed a purpose, and efforts were put in place by the survivors of the flood to reestablish this order, and this led to kingship, royalty, and eventually governments. These were the practices of old, repurposed when the Anunnaki left. Now, at this point, you guys are probably wondering where we're going with this, right?
No, you're going anywhere but Christ. That's the new ABCs. Anything but Christ. So, no, we're not surprised, but go ahead, keep going.
The point we are making is that a more advanced society of that than our own has existed above us on this planet before. And this practice is remembered as something good. And when Columbus sailed for the Americas, he knew this fine well. Wait till you hear this. When the King of Spain funded Columbus's expedition to India in 1492, he had no idea that what lay ahead would be considered the greatest surprise in human history: the discovery of America by European adventurers who had no idea it was there, you see. There was an old myth that you could fall off the edge of the world at this time, so nobody really dared go that far. We only knew about 3 continents just over 500 years ago: Asia, Europe, and Africa. But when he was stranded in Jamaica during his 4th such voyage, he used his intelligence to impress the local residents. He used his foreknowledge of a lunar eclipse to fool the natives of Jamaica into provisioning his men. Knowledge is power when dealing with a less advanced society, and these people had no qualms about using advanced predictions of celestial events like eclipses to con the natives. After the American colonies had broken away, Britain still fought a long-regarded action, trying to undermine the fledgling United States in whatever way possible. Knowledge of an impending total solar eclipse going across North America in 1806 provides an example. As the settlers gradually moved west, the indigenous people were resentful, with good reason. British agents in Canada seem to have convinced against the Yankees by telling the Shawnee tribe of Ohio and Indiana when the eclipse would occur, and their leaders used this to stir an uprising, saying that a sign was due from the Great Spirit in the sky. It all ended in tears at the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811, but the eclipse provided the focus. According to The Guardian, Mark Twain seems to have known of this episode and used it as a basis for a segment of his 1889 novel, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. Reversing the Shawnee episode, Twain has Hank Morgan, the Yankee in the title, hoodwinking the ignorant folk in King Arthur's England by invoking prior knowledge of a solar eclipse due in June of 528, even stating the precise time of totality. He used his imagination, though there was no eclipse around that epoch. Christopher Columbus, on the other hand, on his fourth transatlantic voyage, had been stranded with his men on the north coast of Jamaica, their last two ships riddled with marine worms. Having sent a small party to Spanish occupied Hispaniola, 800 miles to the east, paddling canoes hewn from local timber, Columbus awaited rescue, but their food had run out, and the Jamaicans, who had been pleased to provision them when they first arrived, had tired of the trinkets the Spaniards could offer in exchange. Luckily, Columbus had astronomical tables with him, which indicated a lunar eclipse was due on February 29th. Calling the local chiefs together, Columbus gravely told them that the God of the Christians was all powerful and very displeased with the Jamaicans' refusal to keep them fed. And as a sign of his wrath, the moon would be darkened and turn the color of blood that evening. Many of the natives laughed, although others were not so sure. However, all were convinced when the eclipse began, as Columbus had told them it would, to add to the
Oh man, I get so tired of the natives were stupid thing. You know, I've been hearing that all my life, and I just don't believe it.
oldest German library unearthed in Cologne. Of course, we take for granted the knowledge we have about the origins of our civilization to be a conclusive, solid foundation, but it's not. To understand the history of humans, you must first be open to possibilities that we have been told through the ages to be myth, sensationalism, and even imaginary. To first question everything we have ever been taught, strip back the reinforced ideas that have been pushed upon our minds, and start to think outside of the box. Have you ever thought to yourself that you felt more in touch with the world as a child than as an adult? There's a reason for us having that feeling, and it is in a form of brainwashing to a certain extent. History has been lost to us time after time, but we keep touching on that lost history as we evolve from the trauma of the cataclysm. We keep retracing our footsteps that are set in solid rock all over the world. Why? Because it is our destiny. We as humans know within ourselves that there is a bigger picture, that others were once on this earth tens of thousands of years ago. We are not alone. That very statement was enough for a spark in quantum thinking that has jump-started our mind to search for the answers to the questions we thought we knew the answer to. Anyway, guys, libraries have been burned and destroyed through the ages with countless texts of the great past we were once part of. One such library is found in Cologne in Germany, and it is the oldest library in this region ever.
Let's bet right now. I'm betting it was discovered by accident.
Rediscovered. Wait to hear this. The remains of the oldest public library in Germany, a building erected almost 2 millennia ago that housed up to 20,000 scrolls detailing our ancient past, has been discovered in the middle of Cologne. The discovery could potentially add to our knowledge of libraries in antiquity and also on the development of culture in Rome's German province. The walls were first uncovered in 2017 during an excavation on the grounds of a Protestant church in the center of the city. Archaeologists knew they were of Roman origins, with Cologne being one of Germany's oldest cities, founded by the Romans in 50 AD under the name Colonia, when Germany was known as Germania. But the discovery of niches in the walls, measuring approximately 80 centimeters by 50 centimeters, was initially mystifying. It took us time to match up the parallels, We can see the niches were too small to bear statues inside, but what they were are cupboards for the scrolls. They are very particular to libraries. You can see the same ones in the library at Ephesus in Turkey. It is not clear how many scrolls the library would have held, but it would have been a vast number, possibly exceeding 20,000 pieces of ancient textual scrolls dating back to the time of the ancient Egyptians and possibly beyond. The building would have been slightly smaller than the famed library at Ephesus, which was built in 117 AD. The discovery is being hailed as really incredible and a spectacular find. It dates from the early 2nd century, and it is at a minimum the earliest library in Germany and perhaps the Northwest Roman province. Perhaps there are a lot of Roman towns that have libraries, but they haven't been excavated yet. If we had just found the foundations, we wouldn't have known it was a library. It was because it had walls with the niches that we could tell. The building would have been used as a public library. It is in the middle of Cologne in the marketplace, the public space in the city center. It is built of very strong materials, and such buildings were public because Romans had great respect for knowledge and culture. This was partly because of the influence of the Greek world. Under the influence of the Greeks, the Romans began to build libraries in the 1st century BC. It became common for Roman emperors, for example, Augustus, to endow urban centers with public libraries. This was seen as benefiting the public and also expressing the power of the emperor. Anyway.
Yeah, the emperor, remember those guys, weren't they the same ones that let the generals take out little boys and diddle them? We know what the Greeks and the Romans were like. They weren't like Christians. They weren't like people should be. They weren't what a nation should be built upon and idolized. No. Hey, same thing. What's up? This is fun. Anyway, we're going to be looking at, later today, some of these secret tunnels of New York, going over this, this is one I got pulled up. I wanted to look at and just, pull a couple of things out of here. Another one of these tunnels that got found in Brooklyn by accident, of course. Quite a crazy production story on it too. But anyway, so it was recently found. It was also another one that was recently found by accident that proves the United States, at least as of now, has the oldest subway. 1840s. Come on, people. We know it already, which is why I said in my video earlier today, yeah, we'd all like to be able to demand the Vatican open up their library. But whether that happens or not, and it probably won't, it doesn't provide any information, at least to me, that affects my salvation. I mean, if we can't prove it to the ones we love who've rejected flat earth and the Bible, releasing something from the Vatican isn't going to do it either. I don't think. It's just keep praying, doing what the Lord's will is, but realize we don't need any more proof. Maybe they do. We don't. And for that, we should be in a continuous mode of thanksgiving and praise.
Would it surprise you to learn that a group of Danish explorers depicted the Giza Plateau with 4 prominent pyramids instead of 3? Described as being a black pyramid in the 1700s by Frederick Norden, who detailed this region extensively during his voyage of Egypt. He also describes as well as draws accurate accounts of monuments, hieroglyphics, and even local people during his time here. Everything checks out except one thing. the fourth Great Pyramid of Giza. Wait till you hear this. This explorer was a very reliable source of information for this time period. The length he had to go to confirm and describe to the Danish people of the wonders of Egypt are staggering. He had no reason to lie about another Great Pyramid, so what happened to it and why is it gone? Perhaps it was stripped for the unique masonry that created this gigantic wonder. It is a mystery, and looking at recent images from the European Space Agency, it is hard to imagine there ever was another pyramid here, yet there is a very reliable source suggesting there was. Egypt has fascinated us for thousands of years. The enormity of the undertakings are literally unthinkable today, so why wouldn't this turn out to be true? The pyramid mysteries are unique. They are the talk of much debate today as to what exactly they were, who built them, and why. They have been right in front of us throughout the ages and even into modern times, and we still don't have a logical answer. So when it gets suggested there was a fourth black pyramid made by stone more dense and less common than solid granite, it really should not surprise us that it ever existed. We should be more concerned with where it went. There is very little trace, if any, today. But in notes and drawings, Frederick Norton describes the fourth Great Pyramid. Within these notes, it reads, "The principal pyramids are at the east, southeast of Giza. There are 4 of them that deserve the greatest attention of the curious. For though we see 8 others in the neighborhood surrounding Giza, they are nothing in comparison to the former. The 2 most northerly pyramids are the greatest and have 500 feet perpendicular height. The 2 others are much less, but have some particularities which occasion their being examined and admired. It is without coating, closed, and resembles the others, but without any temple like the first. It has, however, one particular deserving remark, which is that its summit is terminated by a single great stone, which seems to have served as a pedestal. The fourth pyramid has been made upwards above the middle of a stone more black than the common granite, and at least as hard. Its summit is of a yellowish stone. I shall speak elsewhere of its top, which terminates in a cube. It is, moreover, situated out of the line of the others, being more to the west. It makes a series with the 3 others. Today, experts have still not found solid evidence of a major black pyramid at the Giza Plateau, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. There are some authors who suggest that this lost pyramid was in fact destroyed in the late 18th century, and the pyramid's stones were utilized in the construction of the city of Cairo. So in itself, Cairo may have been built by the lost pyramid. We know for a fact that there are numerous structures that still remain hidden beneath the ground. Perhaps the remains of this majestic pyramid are also located hidden underground, waiting for the day someone lucky enough will stumble across its glorious foundation, revealing to the world that Egypt is still filled with mystery and that we are on a long journey to discover the real history of Egypt. This seems to be common practice in Egypt these days, who seem to hide history based on the notion it is not in line with what the world has believed of this region. In particularly, if they cannot squeeze the historical elements into the dynastic period of Egypt, then they destroy, bury, and even deny the existence of major feats of engineering brilliance that not only predates the dynastic Egyptians, it also predates the Great Flood and takes history back to the true timeline of our civilization when human beings literally walked among the gods, the Golden Period, a period so grand in design and achievement that it is not so easily swept under the sand. The evidence is certainly there for the fourth pyramid of the Giza Plateau. Who built it and why remains the greatest enigma in the history of our civilization regarding lost history and forgotten civilizations. What do you guys think of the evidence for a fourth pyramid, the Black Pyramid? Comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.
I don't know. There might have been a fifth pyramid. Maybe not. Lost Dutchman's gold mine, Superstition Mountains. You're always just driving through the mountains until you get to something that somebody cleaned off. But the mountains are all like that. I think underneath most of the older big kit cities in the United States and around the world, I think that there's a Roman bath under many houses just waiting to be discovered still. I think that, there's a time when a place when we'll have to avail ourselves to that type of a situation. Now, I'm not prepared to talk over a video about Petra, and I thought I'd have a little more barnacles and patina. The Lost Comet. Base jumping and holding knowledge. I don't know.
Expecting us to be a part of the later. Any new prospects? Maybe. Why can't we go now? Good. Hey kids, we're having a little party up at my girlfriend's apartment. Wouldn't you like to come? Oh, I'd love to. You want to come, don't you, dearie? Oh, sure. Any place with you. Well, come along. You can all go in my car. Oh, Jimmy, after that session we had yesterday, I went home and told Mother that the trouble with her pot roast gravy was she hadn't added 3 heaping teaspoonfuls of olive oil. What did she say? She didn't say anything. She just threw me out of the kitchen. Well, I don't wonder. Hello, children. Hello, Mother. Hello, Mrs. Doesn't take that new kid long to catch on.
Don't take any of them long. Say, don't you ever get fed?
You're feeding me, can't you see?
Reefer madness.
A verdict of guilty. And this court will be adjourned until the jury's verdict is reached. Sign here, please. You shall be brought into court on Thursday, the 17th, when sentence will be pronounced. Meanwhile, you will be held as a material witness in the case of the people versus Ralph Wiley.
Marijuana.
We've come in the hearings before this court today
To tell you, don't smoke marijuana. Wow. It started out with so many different lost cause of the Confederacy. See, I don't want to listen to any of those that are from Wikipedia. You know, that's just like, wow. Time travel. Let's go ahead and look at that. Let's go ahead and look at the Cobble Hill thing. Hey, Randy. Welcome, brother. Welcome. Your work week is done, done. All right. So let's check this out. This is one of the things today I just had to talk about. It's the Cobble Hill Tunnel and the Atlantic Hill Tunnel. They really are the same thing. We'll look at both. The Atlantic Avenue Tunnel is officially the world's oldest subway tunnel. Take that, London Underground. This tunnel, so they say, was built in 1844, right around the time of the Great Disappointment, the beginning of the Seventh-day Adventist, the beginning of the pre-tribulation rapture movement, going through the young Miss McDonald or McConnell speaking in tongues, ecstatic, and then telling and interpreting it to a Charles Nelson Darby, the Darbyites, Plymouth Brethrens, picked up by a Schofield. Schofield's notes and our faith is built on nothing less than Schofield's notes and righteousness, led to Dwight Moody in Chicago, still active today, promulgating one of the biggest hoaxes on a number of the salt of the earth who have been millstoned into thinking they've got the Bible figured out. Now, all of that just to get to the part that this tunnel was built in 1844 beneath a busy street in the city of Brooklyn. Brooklyn did not become part of New York City until half a century later, 1894. The Atlantic Avenue Tunnel is half a mile long and accommodated 2 standard gauge railroad tracks, only 1/2 mile long. The Atlantic Avenue Tunnel was built in only 7 months using the cut and cover method, only hand tools and primitive equipment was utilized in its construction. It was built to provide grade separation for early Long Island Railroad trains that lacked brakes good enough to operate on city streets. We got to run them underground because if they wreck under there, it's okay. We got just an endless supply backing us up. The tunnel eliminated vehicular and pedestrian traffic conflict and delays. Bob the Diamond rediscovered the long forgotten Atlantic Avenue Tunnel in 1980. The Brooklyn Historic Railway Association was formed in 1982 to preserve, publicize, and provide public access to the historic tunnel. Not much publicity, very little in the way of preservation. They're keeping it hid. I wonder, how these there's a picture of it. So this is the cut and cover. They're going to tell you they dug up the street. They dug by hand down to the bedrock, I think 30 meters, dug a half mile, built the walls, covered it with the bricks, filled it back in with sand up above, repaved the road and said, hey, we got 2 railroad lines underneath there for trains that got brakes that aren't good. They're not good. So, well, here you see, since 1982, a lot of work has gone into this preservation here. This is the end of the other side that hasn't been broken. One side they dug out by hand. I would say they did a lot of work, but the city could have made this a popular tourist thing, but I think, they would have been too much explaining. There it is, the Atlantic Avenue Tunnel, 1845, it says in the picture. Busy at work. Looks like I see a light at the other end of that tunnel now. I thought it was. Now, there is a legend that there is a sealed off one of these trains still back there. It turns out that Ben Diamond, the man, the myth, the hunter of lost railroad tracks, he found this all based on a newspaper article from 1911 and a map from 1875. Let's see, I don't think this has that, they want money for it doesn't say that it has a license to show it for free. They get these for free and then they do some editing and go, now it's mine. And I guess you guys like that. So here's the Cobble Hill. That's what it is. We're going to look at it, get a little, get their version of it. But they had some things in here that might prove interesting. So that you get to see the height of the walls a little better here, I think. That they dug down to the bedrock. Did I see a map? So it's right up in here, I think, but this is where the Long Island Railroad went. I know you all have heard of Long Island, so amazing tunnel roof. There you go. Just once they weren't going to use it anymore, they just sealed it off and covered the ends with sand and ripped off the people. This is all supposed to be like the mafia did it, and everything underground is where the mafia was. It was interesting. So anyway, that's Ben Diamond back when he was young. And him and his friends dug this out. And here's what he does today. He has a license for 20 years from whenever he got it that he can set up these cones and take people down there. So that's the public access. And there he is. Well, 1982 was a long time ago. He didn't clean all this out. He broke through a wall and they hadn't sanded this in. They just covered the two entrances. Tunnels all over this place. It's all old world. Everything was built up underground. These are probably the top of the buildings. Is there more than secret? Are they doing more than the Atlantic Avenue tunnel in this one? Here's Lost Mail tunnels is what they're talking about. But anyway, they're just wherever you dig by accident, it's like you're going to find a tunnel or a Roman bathhouse. There's your mental institution for all of you people that are wondering, like, I wonder if they had mental hospitals too. Well, up until 1808, looks like they might have been without it there, but they had this farm, Columbia University. More asylums. It's always going to be the same thing. Ay, ay, ay. The early test for Google Oculus. There's some your early straitjacket. Filthy baths, all run by rude and vulgar attendants, but still. And another looks like cut and cover underneath Columbia University. They must have decided they had trains with bad brakes. Hey, sign me up. Would you just sign me up in a secret tunnel? I want to die for apple pies and mommies and lies. Hey, I could probably make a rhyme out of that. Mommy's apple pies and lies. Look at that thing there. That's FDR. He had a hidden train station underneath the Waldorf it was the Waldorf. He purchased it. There you go. They found it. There it is. Rediscovered. Let's see what Wikipedia says about Cobble Hill Tunnel. Abandoned Long Island Railroad tunnel beneath Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, New York City, running through the neighborhoods of downtown Brooklyn and Cobble Hill. When open, it ran for about 2,500 feet. It is the oldest railroad tunnel beneath a city street in North America that was fully devoted to rail. It's also deemed the oldest subway tunnel in the world by the Guinness Book of World Records. It looks like there was some closure, controversy, dormancy, and rediscovery until, it's hard to find unless a guy gets a hold of a 1911 newspaper article and an old map and goes, found it. Oh, you don't care. Okay, good. That's cool. Good. Cobble Hill was part of the first rail link between New York City and Boston, Massachusetts. What took them so long? I'm surprised they didn't do it underground, or maybe we'll find that later. Walt Whitman wrote about the tunnel, but they must have thought he made it up. The Bureau of Investigation suspected German terrorists were making bombs in a tunnel, broke through the roof of the tunnel with the jackhammers. They found nothing, installed an electric light, and resealed it. Why? That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Nothing here. Put in a light. Yep, nothing here. Let's go. Bootleg whiskey, mushroom growing, all of the same things. Remember, I've referenced this many times. People love it. One of the first big mud flood stories I think I had, like my first video, over 1,000 views, and it was all about the beach pneumatic trains and tunnel that he supposedly built in secret at night. Wonder if that and this here says a pneumatic train. You know, they usually block that out. And usually, sometimes they have a guy in a chair just sitting here, like taking tickets. We'll see if they show that picture. So, big blower just got the car ready and shot it with some air and rolled it right down there, right underneath the road, right underneath the river. The beach pneumatic transit was the first attempt to build an underground public transit system in New York City. Wrong, 1844. It was developed by Alfred Eli Beach in 1869 as a demonstration subway line running on pneumatic power. The subway line had one stop in the basement of the Rogers Peat Building. Can mud flood me, anybody? You know it is. And a one-car shuttle going back and forth. It was not a regular mode of transportation. It lasted 3.5, 4 years, maybe. See, it's hard to tell because it doesn't give a date of its closing. Here's the politician that just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so they built it at night because they didn't have enough money to bribe him. So let's see if are there any specifics. The design. It's very ornate. Hopefully we will see some pictures. The ornate station had frescoes, easy chairs. It was illuminated by zirconia lamps. Now that is just one less on the Mohs hardness scale than a diamond, but it is, same thing. It looks like a diamond. That revealed the luxurious interior. There were statues and a goldfish pond in the station. How about that? The car could hold 22 people. And, it says, just go into Devlin's clothing store. That's all part of the backstory. It's just ridiculous. Crystal Palace had a pneumatic railway system. I'd like to check it out. I bet you Beach had a hand in this. Maybe, right? Maybe. Who knows? Experimental atmospheric railway that ran in Crystal Palace Park in South London, 1864. Atmospheric railway uses differential air pressure to provide power for propulsion of a railway vehicle. A static power source can transmit motive power to the vehicle in this way, avoiding the necessity of carrying mobile power generating equipment. Well, I'd like to get me some of that atmospheric power. Well, it wasn't designed by Beach. It was designed by a Thomas Webster Ramil, who had previously built a pneumatic railway for the London Pneumatic Dispatch Company to convey letters along tunnels in large vacuum-driven wagons. A similar principle was applied to this railway, where a carriage fitted with a large collar of bristles was sucked along an airtight tunnel that measured 10 by 9 feet. The bristle collars served to keep the tunnel partially airtight. It operated for just over 2 months. Oh, okay. And may have been a demonstration line for a more substantial atmospheric railway planned between Waterloo and Whitehall. They make it, that sounds like they're really a long way away, far distance or something, for the 1800s anyway, but not a lack of, hey, look at me. The rails were on longitudinal sleepers. That's what you call those. Bulk road is the name given to that type of longitudinal sleeper. Rails carried on continuous timbers bearing, as opposed to the more familiar cross sleepers. That makes, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Now, there was a Festival of Empire in 1911. It was the biggest single event at the Crystal Palace in London since its opening. It opened on the 12th of May and was one of the events to celebrate the coronation of King George V. The original intention had been that Edward VII would open it in 1910. But if I remember correctly, wasn't there like a, just didn't happen. He didn't die. So there's beaches. We already were at beaches. I want to see where else I can get from the beach. What? The Hyperloop system, which he hoped would one day propel capsules through evacuated tubes at high speeds using magnetic levitation. Sounds like it. Sounds cool. Ghostbusters had a fictional pneumatic transit system reminiscent of the beach system, is discovered by the Ghostbusters. What? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're all about those type of tunnels. What is this? Track 69 is a storage track abutting a private railroad platform on the Metro North Railroad in Manhattan. It is located beneath the Waldorf Astoria. We were just looking at something about that, within an underground storage yard northeast of Grand Central Terminal. The platform is part of the Grand Central Terminix complex. Wow. Now, you know what you can do is you can hold down and what they call left click that, highlight it, then go switch your hand on the mouse and right click it. And you can either copy it or search it. So this basically is where we had our junior prom. No, I'm just kidding. We couldn't afford it, so we had it in our high school gymnasium. The original construction photos. Here you go. there's your very iconic photo. Grand Central Station. Because they needed to catch the train. And it was the golden age or the end of it. Or look what we found. That's how we dug it out. That's how they dug it out. I would have dug it out a lot. It would have been so tidy. Look at that. They're building an Archie Doodah. So this is how they built it. There it is, all the underground stuff. Construction magazine photographs by Science Photo Library. This was uploaded in 2016. Weird, huh? What's this? That's how you get to the suburbs. You take the Suburban. There you go. What's really the ground level? It's got to be this. So there you go. They built it fair and square. They probably don't need it. I mean, I think they tore it down. That's a nice, smooth tunnel. Easy as pie. Get a few people. Make a few bricks. And there you go. Did the world seem a lot muddier back then? It looked like they said narrow gauge, and I think the standard gauge in the United States is like between 48 and 49, but those honestly, I'm just not buying that. Have you dropped any honestly, I got some bad news. It doesn't look like Tommy's epidural took. He's not feeling it right now. So we were kind of busy, and I didn't really get a Bible study pulled up. And I wonder how you do that. There's this way you can look at your history and see what you've been studying. So I'm pretty sure I want to show you, I want to look up like where's some of the last Bible verses I was looking at. Amos 3. Here we go. I guess we should look at this one some more. Am I showing the screen here? Sometimes I don't. No, I wasn't. I caught that one. I'm not laughing at you, Bob. I'm laughing at this guy. Was it a kit? A kit? I don't, some were kits, and when you can buy it, like from Solomon buying it from King Hiram, and it takes 3 years to build, and it all gets delivered wrapped in boxes, and they put it together, and not the sound of a hammer or anything is heard while it's assembling. That's a kit. That's somebody carving or manufacturing marble Legos. So those are kits. And yeah, and everybody, nobody can do it better than somebody that does it all the time. Would you rather, even with all of your knowledge about construction, Randy, I know you could construct your own window, but wouldn't you rather just go get a Pella or an Anderson window? Or some of those even more expensive ones? Because, that's all they do. They make windows, man. Just boom, boom, boom. They're set up for it. It's not always going to be that way, but it was that way even more so at one time. Amos chapter 6. Is a trumpet blown in a city, and the people are not afraid? Does disaster come to a city unless the Lord has done it? That's kind of crazy. Let's look at a couple of these. Well, let's look at this one. Isaiah 45, verse 7. We'll see where this takes us. I form light and create darkness. I make well-being and create calamity. I am the Lord who does all these things. Drip down, O heavens, from above, and let the skies pour down righteousness. Let the earth open up, that salvation may sprout and righteousness spring up with it. That's what the Lord's at. That's a little context for you. A little more context is found up here in verse 6. So that all may know from where the sun rises to where it sets, that there is none but me. I am the Lord, and there is no other. I form the light and create the darkness. I bring prosperity and create calamity. I, the Lord, do all these things. That's a powerful verse. I'm still mulling that one over. Now, who is in Isaiah 42:16? I will lead the blind by a way they did not know. I will guide them on unfamiliar paths. I will turn darkness into light before them and rough places into level ground. These things I will do for them, and I will not forsake them. He's talking about us. There is a remnant, because unless the Lord make us stand, we would not stand. Because it is not of him that willeth or him that runneth, but of God who shows mercy. There's no man can boast. Isaiah 47:11. But disaster will come upon you. You will not know how to charm it away. A calamity will befall you that you will be unable to ward off. Devastation will happen to you suddenly and unexpectedly. My goodness. Thank you, Lord. Oh, protect us. Give us strength in the time of your correction. Oh, Heavenly Father, we pray. So let's look at that calamity. Let's flesh that out. I mean, yeah, Ra. I thought that was the name of a god. You know, you've heard of that. Ra is our god. Ra. Oh, maybe Ra-El or, Ra, only evil continually. Genesis 6, Nephilim much. The heart is evil from his youth. We cannot speak unto thee good or bad. I believe that's Laban saying, God has told me not to, speak unto you good or bad. Something like that. Bad, though. This is bad. This is calamity. There is no getting around it here. There is no fishing it around here. Pretty strong root word. Oh, that's not it. Here is the whole word here. Wow. Okay. All right. What is the whole deal with Ra? Is it a god? It's an adjective: bad, evil, disagreeable, malignant, unpleasant, displeasing. So it's not a god, but God brings this too. And there are some people that are blind that, didn't it say he was guiding them too? Isaiah 45:7. Or was it one of those other ones? Verse 42:16, I will lead the blind by a way they did not know. Now, for us who have had our eyes open, who, I once was blind, but now I see, my ears have been opened and I can hear Jesus calling my name. We didn't do that ourselves. And so the ones that know not what they do, or, oops, I got to plug in my thing here. I only have 10% left of my battery. Oh. So according to Tommy, I'm supposed to be more careful about watching out for these type of things. Now I get it. Because if you don't, the battery will run out. The problem is it keeps working when you plug it in and you think it's charged up and ready to go. But wow, that battery lasts a long time, because I did some research, believe it or not, before we did this. What's this one here, Scotty? All the pieces are numbered. You do have some very weird stuff from underneath Chicago, brother. I think you demonstrated that in any way I can help you prove that. Yeah, I do. I think that they did that. Yeah. Tommy's trying to take it with that stoic attitude, the stiff upper lip stuff. But, it really, well, what else can he do? But still, that's got to be a major disappointment. I mean, it's risky enough because I showed you what that epidural is, and to find out it's hit or miss. If you can, it's almost like oh, you got to get it in exactly the right spot, or it was all for naught. And I'm afraid that's what it is. So we looked at calamity, and you know what? There will be good news about Tommy eventually and stuff like that. The Lord is going to do, something special there. I just have a really good feeling. I don't have any direct message from the Lord or anything like that. But here's that same calamity, Ra'ah. See, we're right back on it. Now, wait, is this the same one? What's going on here? You guys know. Okay. But this is just like, down here, if you go and see Ra 125, it's the same word. But we needed to look at Ra'ah, not 666. But us no hurt. There you go. There you go, KJV. Just lay it all out for us there. The evil report, wild beast, some evil, us no hurt. Okay, Yoda. I'm going out of my way to make fun of King James, and that's not fair. It's really not. Us no hurt, though, is kind of like was low hanging fruit. Evil again, unto the evil. So she is displeasing. This type of calamity that God can bring. How can we turn that around? How can we turn that around to make it into more of something that is, well, we can look around the world. They think they're winning, but they're losing. And we know what their reward is. That our knowledge of waking up, that has to be so valuable to us of thank you, Lord, for showing me that we all know where's our reward. Our reward is in heaven. Our treasure is in our heart, not in a superficial life that, as you get older and older, and if there is no hope, unfortunately, a lot of prudish people, for the wrong reasons, are now going like, I should just go on vacation to have sex with young people. Men and women were doing that for the last 20 years, whether you know it or not. Everything has been sexualized. And it's because they're going to have a fear they missed something, because it's overwhelming. This planned globe brainwashing that, I've got a documented pretty good memory. It used to be even a lot better. And I don't remember really one lesson on the globe where I wasn't just going like, come on, we know this already. It was just so a part of us. I don't remember where I heard about it. And I remember almost something about every teacher from at least third grade on. And sometimes I think I can go further back, but I don't remember him teaching about the globe. I'm pretty sure it was first grade when I first heard them casually mention Sigmund Freud and the id, ego, superego type of a deal. And just as it's an accepted type of a thing, of reverse psychology in a story as it being, it was crazy. I can't believe. And that was all somehow first grade for me. It was in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it was all about C Jane, C Spot, Jane and Dick run, and things like that. I think it was really called Fun with Dick and Jane. Let's see what else we can glean from that video. Afraid. Here's a Trimble. I really think it's time for us to be happy that God has clued us in, and that also a reminder for some people that he only chastens those he loves. He chastens those he loves because that's what a father does. And those who aren't the fools of the world, those who hate and despise correction, will walk away later and realize my father loves me and disciplined me as he taught us to discipline our children. He told us that, well, there's lists of sin in scripture, and cowardice is always in the front. And there are places where cowardice is listed before murder in things that God hates. Isaac trembled violently. Was that when he realized, was he mad at Jacob? I hope not. That's a sad part. Yep, that was it. Isaac trembled very violently and said, who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? So now it wasn't so much as he might have known pretty much instantly what should have happened, because it didn't take him long, before Jacob was, praying for him, blessing him, and sitting on his way to Laban to, don't get involved with the Hittite women, that were driving one of my female heroes of the Bible crazy. What good will my life be? Rebekah cried to Isaac. Can't stand it. Jacob keeps bringing home these Canaanite women. Yeah. See, because here he found out he didn't like it. He didn't like it, so he wanted to send away Jacob. So now, verse 6 of Genesis 28. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob. So he knew Jacob is blessed. He's a covenant keeper. And he sent him away to Padan Aram to take a wife from there. Oh, yes. Verse 8. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, besides the Canaanite women that were already driving Rebekah mad, besides the wives he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. And I don't think you're supposed to marry sisters. I really don't, in the long run. I know Jacob got tricked into it. I know. But what was I looking up? Oh. So it was was it 23, 43? He was violently mad. Yeah. 33, trembled violently. And violently meant trembled. Quaked. He got shaken mad. Something was crazy. Startled. How could this be? Maybe he was under a spell or something like that. Let's see. Amos chapter 3. For the Lord does nothing without revealing his secret to his servants, the prophets. What is this? Servants, prophets. Abidah. 98 occurrences out of 800, all of his servants, into the hands of his servants, a feast unto all of his servants. This baker, I don't think he made it. Or was it I think the taster made it, but the chef did not. So these are just servants. Now, what's up with the prophets? 73. There was a company of the prophets prophesying. What is Strong's number 5030? A spokesman, a speaker, a prophet. Anciently called in Samuel 9, verse 9. Number 800 times they're mentioned. False prophets everywhere. Watch out. People that will tell you what they want to hear. No, it's all good. Everything's going to be all right. And there are heathen prophets. Maybe people that can do spells, read the astrology, and do all that stuff. But we have the words of the prophets written on our hearts and in the Bible. It's our duty to rightly divide the word of God. All right. Pseudomycology. Well, we have a let's see. Is there any of these other ones that are jumping out at you? Let's watch a couple of minutes of this one.
Recent historical figures have indeed been found in many of these attributed ancient structures. This is merely a result of their astonishing nature, and as such, the past controlling parties of the lands they are found within selected these miraculous sites as their places of burial, rather than them actually being those responsible for the building of the structures. Carved out of a single titanic block of Devonian Old Red Sandstone, and located on a steep-sided glaciated valley, the carving of this stone, along with the mammoth size of its closing stone, we feel, is clearly indicative of a lost civilization. Any explanation as to how our more modern ancestors could have used such a stone?
That is a body part. This is the muscle fibers of whatever this would be, and this is where a vein or an artery ran through it.
weighing many tons in weight, to seal such a chamber remains elusive. It is unique to Northern Europe. R. Castleton, a popular academic author of historical study, refers to the dwarfy stain as representing, quote, the imported idea of the rock-cut tomb that was tried once and found to be unsatisfactory, end quote. He presumes this dissatisfaction of a more modern constructor be due to the hardness of the old red sandstone. We, however, disagree with this hypothesis for several, we feel, obvious reasons. Firstly,
Hey, brother
there is no
Randy.
direct evidence linking.
How you doing?
You're not sharing the screen.
Oh, okay. Thanks, man. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good on this side, but that'll help. Thanks.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot.
Love you. Have a good.
Oops.
Ignored by an academia who simply cannot explain its origins. It is a megalithic chambered stone that has predictably been attributed to having once been a tomb. This identification of a tomb is commonplace within academic circles, an occurrence that can be found describing countless unexplained sites all over the world. We postulate, however, the fact that many ancient ruins of more recent historical figures have indeed been found in many of these attributed ancient structures. This is merely a result of their astonishing nature, and as such, the past controlling parties of the lands they are found within selected these miraculous sites as their places of burial, rather than them actually being those responsible for the building of the structures. Carved out of a single titanic block of Devonian old red sandstone.
This, I think, is a body part. You can tell, Randy, by this, it covers those same things on the smaller ones that we traced.
And located on a steep-sided glaciated valley, the carving of this stone, along with the mammoth size of its closing stone, we feel, is clearly indicative of a lost civilization. Any explanation as to how our more modern ancestors could have used such a stone, weighing many tons in weight, to seal such a chamber remains elusive. It is unique to Northern Europe. R. Castleton, a popular academic author of historical study, refers to the dwarfy stain as representing, quote, the imported idea of the rock-cut tomb that was tried once and found to be unsatisfactory, end quote. He presumes this dissatisfaction of a more modern constructor be due to the hardness of the old red sandstone. We, however, disagree with this hypothesis for several, we feel, obvious reasons. Firstly, there is no direct evidence linking the site to any builders of Mediterranean rock-cut tombs. Secondly, the size of the megalithic block involved in the construction, and indeed the hardness of the stone that was selected to create the structure, is indicative of a lost civilization's workmanship. This is due to the fact that the closing stone would not have been a viable size for any of our well-studied ancient ancestors to have used, worked, or moved. Why would they choose to make a closing stone of such gigantic proportions?
So if you want to study this, it's the dwarfy stain, but it's not spelled S-T-A-I-N. It's S-T-A-N-E. Come on, can they make it any more hard? Those guys.
And thirdly, why would they have gone to such effort in carving the build from a single stone of notorious toughness with the tools they had at their disposal? All the other, we feel, more recently created tombs found in the area are not only vastly different from dwarfy stain, but were created with blocks of a far smaller size. As such, would have been far easier to work with, and thus are far more logically explained as our primitive ancestors were. The name of the structure is derived from a local legend, stating a dwarf named Trollid once lived there, although other legends claim it to have once been the work of giants. We will let you come to your own conclusions as to which legend would fit most accurately. Undoubtedly, an astonishing ancient ruin, one that, due to its incredible size, has survived the eons to the modern day, allowing inquisitive individuals to ponder over its origins and indeed original constructors. It is undoubtedly highly compelling. We recently shared a video concerning some of our most recent discoveries pertaining to the different lost ancient civilizations that I have identified that can be found here upon our planet. Predictably, after our unjustified demonetization, I have continued to be targeted by academics who, due to their inability to answer the questions I posit, obviously hate my work. My most recent video concerning the third ancient civilization I have independently identified as once living here upon our planet, which practiced lost and as such inexplicable building techniques, was targeted. Successfully taken down under the guise of a copyright strike by a particular individual, claiming copyright ownership to all its content.
Look at that. Kinnickinnick, Wisconsin Neolithic ruins. Wow, man, oh man. Now, these great walls at Siseuman, polygonal civilizations, these are body parts too. And this is a wall of unhewn stone, the type the Lord prefers. And when there were great big Nephilim and their cells were lined up like this, now it wouldn't be hard to number them, take them separately, reassemble them, backfill them with dirt, and make a wall. I think that was what is expected when the Lord wanted foundations and, houses of worship made from unhewn stones. He knew they were there. All you had to do is go find them.
On our planet, which practiced lost and as such inexplicable building techniques, was targeted. Successfully taken down under the guise of a copyright strike by a particular individual, claiming copyright ownership to all its content. This regardless of the fact that it contained many different areas of research, most specifically my own, even though we are now demonetized and thus the infringement goalposts, as it were, by default widen. Even if we did share a portion of this certain individual's images, due to no monetization, we would feel that it would merely fall under copyright protection for purposes of commentary and education. And even though we have added my own discoveries to this specific site, this individual devoted several hours, nearly a day's worth of venomous effort, in fact, in targeting not only the video, but every comment made upon it, with a tailored response to each individual, also targeting my email and also spamming my Facebook page, sending several threatening emails, declaring that they were intent on getting their small following to target my channel also. Although this is clear harassment, it has also made their mask slip, as it were. I will be continuing on the same vein of exploratory subject matter in this video, not only to annoy said individual, but academia as a whole. The main problem I feel these academics have with my work, and why they successfully had me demonetized, are the facts I present, along with the efficiency of the attached reinforcing research, my intimate knowledge of what our well-studied, academically permitted ancestors' past capabilities were. But crucial.
I kind of thought that it'd be fun to hear the background on this. I didn't know we were getting into something like they demonetized this guy. I think it's a ripoff, but having never been monetized, I struggle to comprehend.
For example, many of which, still standing, predictably evade modern explanation. With many of these ancient sites' past functions still heavily debated amongst those in the so-called know, we feel that due to the often inexplicable nature of these ancient sites, there is a strong possibility that they are in fact remnants left by a once far more capable group of individuals than our Neolithic ancestry. A group somehow capable of quarrying, moving, and lifting these enormous stones into the positions we find them today, often still displaying their intimate knowledge of solar movements. And Maze Howe is no exception. Nestled amongst the rugged landscape of Orkney, within Scotland, this so-called burial mound was once perfectly aligned with the midwinter solstice, allowing sunlight to pass down its immovable passageway only at this particular time of year. And this impressive passageway is the focus of our video. As with the many other unimaginable, unexplainable ancient sites that can be found all over Earth, the many hundreds of people who frequent them merely overlook that which has been hidden in plain sight in favor of academic notions pertaining to the origins of such sites. These enormous, immovable megalithic blocks that were used to form the walls, floor, and indeed ceiling of the entrance to Maze Howe were clearly created with the intention of remaining in situ for untold millennia. Built with blocks as yet unexplored, and as such, of an as yet unknown weight. Yet the photographic imagery already taken clearly indicates that these megalithic blocks run into the hundreds of tons, far too huge for any of our Neolithic ancestors to have once moved or indeed built with. So a question arises: who could have built Maze Howe? Why did they build it? And perhaps most importantly, when was it built? Undoubtedly containing megalithic blocks far in excess of any within Stonehenge, and possibly the biggest yet discovered upon the British Isles. Many of these claimed megalithic sites desperately need new eyes to investigate them. Yet, regardless of what academia would like you to believe, we find the evidential, thankfully immovable features of Maze Howe highly compelling. Neolithic Britain is perhaps one of the most historic.
Is one of the most boring.
Specifically my own, even though we are now demonetized and thus the infringement goal harassment. It has also made their mask slip, as it were, as the attitude of academia towards my content and their resentment of such are clearly aligned with this individual's vitriol. I will not mention this individual's name, firstly because
I am so tired of all the vitriol. First time I've seen it. Don't be shocked if he's an Atlantean.
Welcome to the rainforest of Central America. Hidden from the naked eye, underneath the canopy, massive ancient cities are waiting to be discovered. Recent high-tech laser technology, called LiDAR, revealed ancient megacities about twice the size of Mexico City, around 15 million people, thriving in a relative small area. How was that even possible without supposed sewer systems or without supposed waste processing systems? Imagine a megacity like Tokyo without a proper functioning sewer, fresh water systems, and advanced infrastructure, or cultivation and distribution of foods. Without, the population would be decimated within months due to plagues and diseases. So, there is still, despite the recent discoveries thanks to LiDAR, much more than meets the laser eyes. These cities thrived and grew to enormous proportions. These new discoveries are just a tip of the iceberg. Every new scan of this area will reveal many more megacities of the ancient world. Similar as deforestation revealed geoglyphs in the Amazon rainforest. The ancient world was probably more advanced than we can imagine today. But since stone is one of the few materials that survives the eons, while most other materials are decomposed, we tend to believe they lived in the Stone Age. Archaeologists are stunned by what they have discovered just recently with the LiDAR technology. It is still unexplained how such large populations could live in such a swampy, moisty area. On top of that, it is assumed with no proper technology to rely on. The current paradigm of the so-called Mayans was that they brutally sacrificed innocent people to their deities. That is the primitive image that archaeologists and historians still spread, even today. However, these were not the people who originally occupied these cities. The people who performed ceremonial sacrifices, those who we are mistaking for the Mayans, were the superstitious, less developed offspring of the original inhabitants of this region. All these Mayan stone calendars and stone carving are mistakenly connected to the people who performed the ritual barbarisms. Historians and their peers have made an enormous mess of our ancient history. What most people don't know is that these stone artifacts cannot be dated like archaeologists are claiming. They simply cannot be dated in any way. All claims are unscientific and sucked straight out of the big thumb. All these artifacts were created by our distant ancestors. The same people who built the megacities. They were the Atlanteans that so many people are looking for. Homo sapiens with advanced...
I'll be checking in the comments here in about 5 minutes. And if anybody knows what sucking on the big thumb has to do with anything, please let me know.
Advanced technologies with high developed societies who were destroyed by one of the many catastrophe cycles of Mother Earth. Atlantis was no specific place, it was a time frame on Earth that has been lost in the mist of time. From this mist dooms a species, Homo sapiens, seemingly out of nowhere. Walking in bare skin, using stone tools. But this species rose from the ashes of a long-lasting catastrophe, when the crust massively deformed over an amazing long time frame of 104,000 years, between 130,000 and 26,000 years ago. The Earth calmed down,
Hey,
life became tranquil.
settle
as
down,
nothing had
girl,
happened.
settle down.
Immense, powerful, all-disruptive crustal deformations. Current historical paradigm are...
Man, how terrible. How sad must it be to want to live in it where you have to force the earth into every... Oh, that's so sad.
There are a considerable number of ancient anomalies located within Egypt. These ancient feats of engineering litter sites and the quarries the stones were sourced and shaped at. And although many of you would have heard of Aswan Quarry, Elephantine may be a less familiar location to you, and for good reason. Not only are the pyramids one of the most perplexing, near perfectly constructed, and as yet unexplained ancient architectural accomplishments on Earth, but how an ancient civilization, supposedly placed within permitted known archaeological history, accomplished such a feat, or indeed why. What was their original purpose? Academic contradiction, a severe lack of anomalous artifacts explored, never mentioned or somehow conveniently go unnoticed. However, in the real world, beyond the boundaries of the fenced or so-called schools of education, thanks to our
Could just as soon be body part.
own work and the presentation of such a volume of inexplicable events, artifacts, ruins, or megaliths, along with many others allied within similar fields, independently funded researchers, investigative agents, and many more, sometimes even noticed first by a viewer credited with its rediscovery within our coverage. Thanks to all this movement working to expose such enigmas, has meant that not only are these incredible characteristics now being documented, mentioned, popularized, photographed, and studied more and more each day, now being recognized by more and more critically thinking individuals, individually finding evidence of
Those you find in the body everywhere.
of lost technologies that had until then either been undiscovered or deliberately overlooked by the funded academic. The vast catalog of unexplained...
And now you know. And now you know. You've seen these in the medical pictures. And there they are again in stone.
Architecture, again growing by the day, but also the often accompanying curious stone cuts, scars, and striations, all clearly left by high-speed disc-cutting machine, a signature tool mark, identical to that which is left by modern-day power tools, along with the still absent demonstration of the methods used to construct the pyramids, leads anyone to this ongoing and seemingly most controversial of arguments regarding the origins of the ruins found across Egypt. The Colossus of Memnon, each one weighing far over 1,000 tons, would sing every morning an amazing ability we have covered in a previous video, a curious characteristic reported all the way up until the Roman era. We also covered the thick layer of sea salt once found coating the pyramid's ground in underground caverns, along with a water line reported at around 40 meters up their sides, still visible during the Spanish invasion. This clearly suggests that the pyramids and their accompanying sphinx are in reality so old they even had once been submerged in ocean waters. An ancient ocean which over the eons has shifted, leaving behind sediment in the form of the desert sands.
Maybe it was Noah's flood.
Incredible ancient pyramids later on within their history. Signature tool marks, unique features such as protuberances, masonry shapes, polygonal stone walling, and many other features which we have discovered during our explanations into the relics of lost antiquity. Yet Egypt's most intriguing assets, and we feel the most baffling relics which all alternative historians should have within their debacle armory, are undoubtedly to be found within the once abruptly abandoned quarries. The unfinished obelisk found at Aswan being one such relic, the most well-known of these incredible stones by a long way. Not only is the obelisk over 1,000 tons, but also due to the identifiable scoop-like tool marks left upon its granite sides, a signature monstrous carving perfectly bored into a sheer rock face in the Bamiyan Valley of central Afghanistan is not only a relic, which we hypothesize was left by a now lost civilization, but due to the facial features once masterfully depicted upon the statue, removed at some later time within history, carved flat, not only making its identification as Buddha questionable, it was for some reason completely destroyed during the Iraq War. Its destruction, I propose, supports our prior posit of it indeed being that of a lost civilization's work, this being the sole motive for such actions. Interestingly, hidden voids found behind the carving, if it were indeed a solid carving, as one would have once presumed when gazing upon it, how were these hollow chambers once placed behind said carving? Additionally, not only do most modern institutions deny any of the evidence we so often put forward on our channel, often in regards to a past lost civilization, but fields such as geology is simply actively writing off countless ancient sites and anomalies as simply geological coincidences, their existence being an impossibility according to already established, supposedly concluded chronology for human civilization. One reoccurring strategy, which I like to call the pareidolia effect denial, has befallen countless sites of interest. One of the most hotly debated being the face on Mars, now simply dismissed as
Oh, jeez.
Far and wide, evidence which flies in the face of modern paradigm. This Charonian is yet another of these curious, clearly immensely old anomalies that, regardless of its form, once being carved from extremely tough rock. Maybe this is why our lost ancestors built with such enormous stones, and did so in an as yet unexplained, yet clearly highly advanced way, known as polygonal masonry. Perhaps they built like this so that their footprint here on our planet be long-lived, designed to deliberately be resistant to the elements, to reach us now in the modern day, giving all of us an opportunity to understand the real history of our Earth, regardless of what others would like. We find all of these things highly compelling. And technique, fortunately, survived into the modern era. However, it is not just its polygonal foundations which show clear evidence of these elusive and consistently denied lost ancestors. Octopus Rock, for example, also sometimes known as the Drum Stone, is the largest megalithic stone found within the walls within the castle's grounds. This giant stone, just like those of Baalbek, is enormous. Estimates for its weight range from 100 to 300 tons, although it could, of course, be far heavier. However, even at these conservative estimates, any explanation of how ancient man accomplished such feats remains elusive. For the fact remains, the stone is of an incredible size, and to this day, its placement, along with many others found throughout the world, remains unexplained and unknown. So, for one to conclude that this stone's use, its quarrying, transporting of all of Japan's forgotten wonders, a place we have covered in the past, it was, we believe, like so many other inexplicable sites around the world, re-inhabited by our most recent of ancestors, placed within an academically permitted timeline of events. A chronology that, if one wishes to succeed in the mainstream, must toe the line of. For if one goes against the grain and explores the site with a critical mind, one can clearly see it contains a number of surviving features, which not only displays lost knowledge, thus the work of a lost civilization, which at some point in the very distant past built ruins all around the globe, building countless polygonal ruins which have, due to their incredible construction technique, fortunately survived into the modern era. However, it is not just its polygonal foundations which show clear evidence of these elusive and consistently denied lost ancestors. Octopus Rock, for example, also sometimes known as the Drum Stone, is the largest megalithic stone found within the walls within the castle's grounds. This giant stone, just like those of Baalbek, is enormous. Estimates for its weight range from 100 to 300 tons, although it could, of course, be far heavier. However, even at these conservative estimates, any explanation of how ancient man accomplished such feats remains elusive. For the fact remains, the stone is of an incredible size, and to this day, its placement, along with many others found throughout the world, remains unexplained and unknown. So, for one to conclude that this stone's use, its quarrying, transporting, and placement within this wall was done by our less capable, more primitive post-Ice Age ancestors, yet all these methods of building and lifting, the knowledge of how to do such tasks, somehow simply vanished through the ages, all of which now remaining a mystery even with computer technology. An explanation still evades us. Thus, to conclude this to be anything else than that of a relic, left by a far older, now lost civilization's work, we believe would be highly illogical and should appear illogical to anyone with a capacity to dissect the purposes for these actions, taken by an academia claiming to hold all the answers, all the while actively concealing or ignoring any conflicting controversial evidence, truths that, due to their belief in their power, laying within their reluctance to ever admit an incorrect hypothesis for the origins of species or the timeline of man. Thus, this doubling down on fallacy merely makes their persistence at sticking to said posits not only a damaging conspiracy, which robs us all of our heritage, but can also be perceived as an attempt to conceal anything which could alter the status quo. The Octopus Rock is an incredible feat of ancient engineering, and one, just like that of the polygonal masonry techniques that can be found at countless other sites the world over, is clearly a relic of a forgotten past, accomplished with the use of forgotten technology and knowledge. Just how big is Octopus Rock? How old is it, for that matter? And how did our ancient ancestors accomplish these feats? As our research deepens and our studies widen, our target, that of a currently hidden lost civilization, becomes clearer in the mind every day, and it is only a matter of time before they are fully rediscovered. To deny such facts will eventually become too ludicrous.
Those people just don't know what else to do when they get there. Just horse around and be like, this is, who could explain it? There's that one little rock that everybody loves.
And can only be explained by a past intercontinental, highly capable lost civilization.
It's a body part.
As we have postulated in the past, in regards to many factors indicative of their megalithic legacy. Metal clamps identified on differing continents, varying in style and composition relative to what was presumably readily available. So, although they differ in style, the knowledge of how to create and use such ancient technology had clearly been the work of the same civilization. The pyramids of Uimer, for example, are
those same type of key things are found on the Erie Canal, close to New York City.
6 rectangular pyramids you would more than likely have never heard of, and most certainly would not have been taught of their existence by modern mainstream academia. Built from lava stone without the use of mortar, they are uncannily reminiscent of many structures within the South Americas. They are located in the districts of Chacona, part of the town of Uimer, on the island of Tenerife in the Canary Islands, Spain. The structures have been attempted to be dismissed as nothing but 19th century buildings, argued
I know,
as the
that's crazy,
byproduct of
isn't it?
contemporary agricultural techniques.
Crazy.
Yet their infamous
That
shape
corner was actually inside the wall. It's crazy, but it's not crazy when you think how the body works. I know that sounds crazy, but at least it makes sense. I hope you can tell I'm working on something here. I don't want to, just leave you hanging. I want to end with a Bible study. Have you guys ever heard about that that song, Turn, Turn, Turn? It's from the book of Ecclesiastes. You heard of that one, right? You know what, Muddy Dolphins, there used to be this a battle between two salsas, and like maybe it was Pace, and the other one was the other, another famous brand, and the one guy would go like, we got to get this one here because it's made in Texas or something like that. And the other one goes like, well, where's that one made? And he goes, New York City. And then they switch to the old cook, and he goes, New York City? You had to be there. Right. It was made famous by the band The Byrds. But we're not going to watch The Byrds because I'm afraid of copyright strikes. I've got to hold on. I've been reset so many times. These copyrights are driving me crazy. So I'm going the extra mile. So that's what I did. That's what I was doing. See, I like to get it up here and then make sure that, it's Creative Commons. That's how I make my videos, not that anybody would ever want to see it. Girl with Mandolin, John with the 12 string, John with the mandolins.
Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to leave. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every.
I gotta do it. Let's hear it. Your turn. Go. I just skip it. I figured it. Long introduction.
A time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away the stones, a time to gather the stones together. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn.
And I know that throughout it, oh, I didn't play it again. Well, hey, you got to hear, we got to see them both turn, turn, turn. You heard the mandolin. How come bluegrass bands don't have drums? Why don't one of the only, made in the USA area bluegrass music, why doesn't it use drums? I gave a little bit of a hint there with the mandolin. The mandolin is the percussion of the bluegrass band. That's what I read. So anyway, we're going to look at and this time I'll make sure I share the screen, at the last two chapters of this book you've probably heard of, Ecclesiastes. I was just talking about it. So we'll look at chapters 11 and 12 just to finish it off. God endorses the book of Revelation. He doesn't endorse Solomon's later life, but these are God recommended parables and words of wisdom. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in a place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. Light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all, but let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O young men, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. I remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, in which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men are bent and the grinders cease because they are few, and those who look through the windows are dimmed and the doors on the street are shut, when the sound of the grinding is low and one rises up at the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of song are brought low. They are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way, and the almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire fails because man is going to his eternal home. And the mourners go about the streets before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Vanity of vanity, says the preachers, all is vanity. Besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. And I've given a lot of thought. What could possibly Solomon have prayed for to keep him from those final days of shame? Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come. I do believe it's possible that as men get older, somehow they get weaker. That's why maybe Solomon forgot to pray, that he said, give me the wisdom and let it last my whole life so I never fall and I never fail you. Well, we know that now. Now we know that had to be it. So we can do that right now. We can ask God that says, God, let me remember now my first love. Because when you're new in the Lord, and once you'd never do that. But only after you go comfortable, and then if you start thinking, what might I have missed or something, then their brain goes crazy. I still am so brokenhearted by so many people that I know that when they got old, and just recently, Rabbi Zacharias That broke my heart. I listened to him for decades, and I'd still recommend it listening because he said the right things. I believe he believed them. Those are evil days, and they're not going to be helping you. They're only going to be trying to hurt you. I want to welcome you off grid, John. I saw you pop in there, brother. I've been thinking about you. Talk to Ella just for a minute when Tommy was talking to her earlier. Always in our prayers, Tommy is particularly grieved in his spirit about Australia and New Zealand, and, you know, Trooper and Ella also. We'll see what the Lord has for us tomorrow. Let's remember Tommy in prayer. All of you have, many of you have related to me things that are, there's many of us in deep need of prayer and patience. And we also need time to not just read the Bible, but study it. At times like this, we realize what happened when Paul and Silas, the first time that they got a beating, they thanked God in prison, or was it Peter? And but one of the first group, and now see, I'm forgetting things too, but they praised God that they were worthy to have suffered for Christ, and it was before an earthquake, so it was Peter. So amazing, right? Let's remember that as we go into prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for all your mercy, your love, your grace, your kindness, for the way that you give us our aches and pains to show us what we need to take care of. Dear Heavenly Father, I can't name them all, but you know the people I love, and I know the people that love your word, and I thank you for your word. I pray now that you'll just be with us, that you will help us, that you will remind us that we have not because we ask not, and let us come to you now, Father, as in our time of most urgent need of maturing in this lifted veil grace of seeing the plan of our Abba Father, and go to him and say, Father, what have you prepared me for? Do I need more prayer? What is my gift? Am I a canoe builder? Am I a scout? Am I a farmer? Am I a leader? Am I a shoe maker? How can I contribute, Heavenly Father? What am I best at? Heavenly Father, I do pray for that. I pray that we will seek your face, study your Bible. Let us not count on our old arguments that we have been giving since the flat earth movement started. Let us go back over those Bible verses and let the Lord, oh Father, do Lord, bless us. Let us keep studying and let us keep finding it and keep helping to open our eyes and to study your word and appreciate it so much. For it is the gospel. It is the only way to heaven through Jesus Christ. And it is in his name we pray. Amen. All that time I forgot to, invite anybody in. If anybody wants to come in, if they have anything in closing, I'll be happy to wait around here, or anything else. You know what? You know, the Nicolations and that whole Santa thing, that just came out of nowhere too, didn't it? So, amen. And on with an all life rodeo. And you know what? Get back on that horse. It's always a good thing to do. I know I've tried it a few times. I remember one time I was showing off for some friends a full gainer, and this board I was not used to, a lot stiffer. I did a back flop, and if I would have went back up even in pain and did it, I would have never done another one. You know, you've got to get back on that horse. A righteous man, if he falls 7 times, get back up. Get back up. Don't let anything stand in your way of fighting your way back to that plow, so that you will be found hanging on to that plow. What is the 1086? Is that the Battle of Hastings or something like that? Or is that the year for 70 AD? Don't forget to use your spurs. No. I think you're supposed to you got to be a horse whisperer. John, Trooper Man. There he is, a guitar legend. How are you, John?
Hey, brother.
There he is.
Oh, brother. I've been praying for you too, my brother.
How you been?
Have I got you? It's a bad line, is it?
It's just catching up. I think it'll be fine.
I was moved to look at the Domesday book. Have you heard of the Domesday book?
I certainly have. Yeah, the Doomsday Book.
Yeah, well, I got moved to look. I grew up being told that it was the Doomsday Book. So when I grew up as a child, obviously we've got a lot of strange families in my family history. We were told it was the Doomsday Book, and it was an audit. Say, yeah.
Well, that's just an enunciation thing, my friend. That's just an enunciation thing. It's spelled Domesday, but it's always been pronounced Doomsday. I was just looking at it earlier and going over that Domesday is the Middle English spelling of Doomsday Book. The manuscript record. Okay, that's what it was. The Great Survey of England, completed in 1086. We're looking at it, John. What would you like to add about it?
Well, see, strange things about it. One, it didn't audit London at all. Yeah, London proper wasn't. Yes.
I'm going to be honest with you. No, I have to be honest with you, John. I don't understand one thing about London, how they set that up, how they still get away with that. They might as well be Washington, D.C. and Wall Street rolled into one.
I've got here we go. I'm getting better reception. I'm going up on my roof, my brother. So
yeah, well, we hear John. At least I hear you fine, brother.
Got you now. I've got you now, my brother. Okay. So yeah, the audit in 1086, I think. Well, look, I don't think it was 1,000 years ago. Yeah, because you remember was it 1986? They did some memorial. I've got a photo of it up somewhere, you know. But at that point, I mean, I believed it was the Doomsday Book, and I mean, it was like I was given the impression of like Christ is coming soon. We're going to get our act. Now looking back at it, that of what it was about, and the audit we're having now is so we're having a medical audit that reflective of that. So we're having a worldwide audit of the shadow. Well, that's us, isn't it? We are the cattle. We are the
This actually
produce
is what.
they're auditing.
Would you say that, this fits into, to me, it fits into like somebody had this with them, and when they came out of the caves after Armageddon, they said, here's who owns what. Quick, get there. I've got your deed. You go here, you go there. That's what it seems like to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, shit. At the moment, our electronics have been mucking up and being quite interruptive. We had a bill come through, which was identity and disrupt bill. And I've had hell with all my electronic equipment. To upload on YouTube, it takes me an insane amount of time now. It took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours just to do a 4-minute video the other day. The phones muck up. I send messages to people, they don't get them. It's become on scale. Like I think the quantum computers are running against us, and I mean, you can get the best hacker in the world, he can't do squat when you're running a simple binary system against a quantum computer.
Well, that's what they got now. That they started using the Colossus computer with the binary code and punch tape paper with holes in it during World War II. That's what they have to admit to now.
What they've done in Australia now to extend upon this, all our titles are now digital. So you don't hold titles, and even if you have bought a safe in the 70s when you bought your property and you put your paper title in a safe and did the right thing, it's worthless. The paper title now is void, null and void. They're all held by our title office got told to quite ago. So our titles office, since going fully digital, paper titles are worthless and mean nothing. And this is quite a scary place to be at for a lot of people. It means that part of the reset is going to be a reformatting. So, I mean, I guess they'll be able to move lands from parishes, or they've got it set out a new format. It's quite a, yeah, I'm a bit determined. I had to get up on the roof. I wasn't going to miss the opportunity. Our phones don't work often here, so we've been having real communication problems. So it's good to actually catch up.
You look like you're in a pretty good spot, pretty secluded, brother.
Oh, brother, I've been blessed. The God has actually been kind to me, and I'm not worthy. I'm the greatest of sinners. I'm the greatest of fools. And I've been blessed. I've got a beautiful, lovely home, beautiful animals. And I've got a whole bunch of really healthy kids who've got no government intervention medically and stuff. They eat well, shine, lots of fresh air. And when you talk about, you remember Donald Trump was talking about the ivermectin stuff, horse medicine?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Donald,
yeah.
He's the problem.
Not that I'd know anything about the things, but playing with the dirt and the side of a hill, I'm sure you're going to get a handful of it saying.
No, you know what? You broke up there. You go back to that
I'm
other
not surprised.
spot. Yeah, go back to that other spot on the roof. It was a
I'm
little
up
better.
higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to a higher position now. Okay. That beautiful, the horse medicine.
Oh yeah, ivermectin.
Medicine, you know what I'm talking? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We shouldn't really say it too
Yeah.
much.
Oh, I got to be careful what I say. I got to be careful that I don't end up getting a strike.
That's right. So let's just call it medicine. Horse You know where they get it from?
The horse medicine store.
Dirt from the ground. It's mold from dirt. So our wives' tales are saying, go play in the dirt, eat dirt, let your kids eat dirt.
Well, you know,
That's the same medicine, isn't it?
sometimes there's some really good medicines, and then the FDA will say it was nothing but pond scum. You know, so you can get medicines from anything. So I don't want to discount whatever it is, but I do know that I don't trust their drugs because they only make money off of treating symptoms. They don't make money once they cure somebody with the course of a 10-day drugs. You know, here, take these pills for 10 days, you're cured. Well, now they're out of money.
I've got you.
They want
Yeah,
planned
it's funny, isn't it? Because
obsolescence.
letting your kids, our kids play in the dirt. So I reckon hit up with a fair horse medicine without anything you can do about it. It's just there, isn't it? Like, I think there's a lot of things in nature they're not really keen because they're cheap cures. It's like the oregano oil is, in Australia, we've got a big problem with over medication. So we've got doctors handing out antibiotics like they're candy. Consequently, we've got people candy, but they can't get off the candy because when they do, addiction rises because of the type of candy. Whereas if they're having fruits or natural products, right, not candy style medicine, so like oregano oil or oregano oil, depends what you're into. Things like that, you know, the garlic oils, your basics.
It's white sugar is more addicting than cocaine or heroin. And, you know, I don't see, you know, I gave it, you know, my children loved it. I loved it. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that I quit using sugar, but that was a big part of my life. And how do you do it? I mean, how do you do it? You're a father that has a young child. What is, you know, how do you stay positive, brother? Tell us.
I have trouble with sugar. I love my coffee. I had a coffee shop when I was younger. Like, I've got a problem with coffee. I love and the sugar problem, but the oregano is a lifesaver. There's a disease that doesn't exist in Australia called Lyme's disease, and the allegation is it exists here. Or I got bitten by ticks many a time, and one time I got bitten by ticks and I had big bullseye, which if you look up anything, the bullseye is it. And oregano saved me. You know, yeah, it's amazing.
Oregano oil. Now, did you say it was pressed oregano oil? Yeah.
A cold pressed, yes. Yeah, I'm walking to our oregano at the moment, actually. Two types. We've got the Greek, I think it's Greek oregano, which is a Greek variety my wife prefers. My wife, even though she's doing her doctorate in law, she's actually knows, her medical knowledge is starting to push my head a little, so I have to try and keep up with her. So I think that's one of the variety. I'm not.
Now we're breaking up a little bit. We're breaking up a little bit, John, but I still want to persist. Now, have you ever heard about anything using borax for medical purposes?
I'm going back up. Once I came down from the roof, I've lost you, brother. I might have to. Communication's so bad here at the moment.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you. Now, I was asking you, have you ever heard about borax? Because that's making a new entrance into the, you know, the health world here, is that a pinch of borax might flush you out.
Oh, gosh. Borax, did you say?
Yeah,
Oh,
have you ever
mate,
heard
I'm
of
so
any of the
sorry. My
medicinal
bloody...
uses for borax?
Hang on. Oh, okay, borax. Right. I mean, we keep... I'm going to go have a look in our cupboard. We do actually have some of the products that my wife's been into. And it's another one which was using kerosene and mineral terps for things that were medical. Here we go. I'm getting you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're getting a little background
Okay,
feed,
I'm
but
on
we
my
are
little
hearing you.
rooftop parlour. Oh, goodness gracious, that's better. I can hear you now. And I had bad... Is that
Are you
better?
still there? Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry about my communication problems, Alan. This has happened before.
I know how it goes,
We're
man.
very, very...
Right when you need it, but you know,
I
hey, just
know,
don't
I
worry
know, it's
about it.
happening. I've missed... Oh, we've missed you a lot.
I talked to
Yeah,
I
it's a
listened to
while.
Ella's show this morning, and then I caught her when she was talking to Tommy. You know, both times people were mentioning you because nobody, you know, when she was taking some time off to beef with family and stuff, and everything we hear in the United States about Australia, it just seems like you're in the movie The Minority Report or Running Man or something from the future, Blade Runner.
I'm going to have to watch the show from outside, brother. I'm missing every third word, second word you're saying, and it's driving me nuts because I miss you.
And that's funny. That's crazy
I'm
because
off
I hear you better now than I did when you were on the roof.
Oh, I'm in my little rooftop deck. This is my little escape from the children.
Yeah.
So I come to get away. And
Well,
how
how are things going in your everyday life? How's your everyday life going, brother?
We're very fortunate. Look, I haven't played a gig that's paid any 18 months. I've done a couple of studio sets, but as far as live work, yeah, I don't need to shave. I don't need to clean up because I think my next live gig is 2 months. Oh no, I've got a gig in a couple of weeks, I think, with an originals band that doesn't pay that much, but they're sneaking me in because all the venues are vaccinated. So I won't say anything about who they are or whatever, but I'll be wearing a disguise and be snuck in the back door and do the gig and get paid. But we've got some festivals coming, what I
Yeah.
call the South Tartarian. They call
Hey,
them
there you
Aboriginal
go.
here, but I'd give them the credit that they...
Well, we are
structure that was here
breaking up.
before
We're
we got here.
breaking up more and more. I want to get in one more question if I can, because we are breaking up a little bit. But when you talk and I don't interrupt, we hear you fine. So what I'm wondering is, you know, you get a lot of immigrants, we get a lot of immigrants, and we always hear that they can just walk across the border and get a new ID and a new social security number for $300. Well, where are all these people? I want to get 4 or 5 extra ones. I mean, you know, is that wrong,
Okay,
John?
I have to be careful here. I'm not sure if you're aware, but if you talk about certain things in Australia, you can go to jail immediately for 3 months.
Oh, wow. See,
So
that's
if I
one
was
of
to
the
talk
things
about certain visas,
Okay,
right?
well, then just
Like,
scrap that question. I had no idea because that's still one of the limited freedoms we have here is that as long as it's not the cause celeb, we can still talk about it. I mean, it's still, you don't want to bring up the false flags with too much specificity.
well, I can be quite candid about it, and we have people shipped here by, and I'm happy to name names. We've got a politician called Janelle Saffin who and envoy for, I think it was the Burmese government or such. These traffic humans using strange sort of business arrangements and tend to keep their super. They tend to arrangements which to do. A lot of these people can't read English, and they're brought here on a contract which is written in English, which is unlawful, but I guess to the duped is the spoils. You know, they do see that as if you can trick someone in law, it's valid. That's how Australia's run. I mean, the whole of Australia was brought down by, would you believe, booze bus. The booze bus was in breach of Section 40 of the Criminal Code, which is you have a right not to incriminate yourself. Whereas a booze bus is incriminating yourself, obviously. So by running a dichotomy, or if you like, legislations that were not able to be run at the same time, one was able to over the other simply by a contract with the people without them knowing it. So by pulling over and accepting the breath test and giving the breath of life to them, basically gave authority to the government over your life, realizing it.
It's crazy. It's just like it's like Mad Max, where eventually these young cops, because the pictures, you know, all the cops are old and fat, most of them in the States. They look like you guys got yours right out of high school. And it's coming down to a Mad Max world where a couple of cops are going to go off and go like, what the hell am I doing?
We're hiring mercenaries. We've got different colours. If you have a look at Melbourne riots, for example, or Sydney riots, you'll see there'll be cops with blue label, red label, and yellow labels, all green. Now, they're different styles of police. They have different formats, different tactical responses. Now, there's been some army people who both I know and I don't know who have spoken up regarding this, saying that there's no full-time military person in Australia who would be citizen. Cops, allegedly from that side of the world, if you know what I'm saying, were doing so. Now, they said they were only shooting rubber bullets, but as you saw in that movie Rust, you know, you got to be careful, haven't you? I mean,
Yeah,
like,
man.
once you're dealing with that shit, and it all comes down to Australia's the over-regulated place in the world, and we're now seeing that come to fruition. Our regulations have come through social contracts that the people didn't even have knowledge of. So while they were pulling over the booze, thinking, oh, you're stopping drunk drivers, no, you weren't. You were making a deal, putting the government in power. When they signed the Indigenous rights, gave a legal for Indigenous people were doing was giving credit and giving valid.
They have to cover up what they did to the Aborigines. They have to dig in now. There's no way they can just admit.
It's lawless, isn't it? Lawless legislation is rampant.
Right. Well, I've been going, it's over 3 hours now, so I'm going to have to cut it off now, John. Thank you so much for joining in.
God bless you.
God bless you, and God bless everybody out there. I really do thank you so much. That's Trooper, everybody, Off Grid John. And I want to thank him, Muddy Orphans, Scotty Waddles, Randy, my man. You know I love you like a brother. Chocolate for Hogs, appreciate it. All you people that have stuck around here. It's a flat earth nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. You know, I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? I spend all my time trying to prove I have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.